So if you've ever wondered how you can send a link to somebody and it'll pull up the exact page, like the exact Google search that you had, or pull up a YouTube video that's exactly the spot that you left off at, you're gonna see exactly how that works right now. The way that that works is through interpreting what would otherwise look like gibberish. And what I'm talking about is in the URL bar here, this familiar thing that we see all the time but never really think too much about what's up in there. But websites think a lot about what's up in there. So let's do a Google search here for dogs. So if I go into here and say dogs, enter, I see a bunch of dogs. Now, if I were to grab that URL and then go to another tab and paste that in, that exact link that I have, notice what I've gotten here. I've got the search bar in Google filled out and I can see the search results for dog brought up into there. Now, how did that happen? Well, that happened from this exact link here that looks like gibberish. But there is information that we can conceive of in here. And let's just grab only this part. Now that looks a lot more legible than everything else that we have. And the real magic is being done on this part right here. So we can see that we are on the search part of Google and that we have this question mark and then a Q equals dogs. Now, as you may infer from this, the Q stands for query, and then we're saying that the query is equal to dogs. So if I were to grab just that part, and I go back over to Google, and I paste that into the URL, and hit enter, voila, there we go. We have this dog search that came up, and we can see that we have the search bar filled in too. And what's happening there is that Google, or whatever site that you use that is making use of these query parameters, is what they're called, is going to read this that's up in here and then respond accordingly to that. So in Google's instance with this, it's going to grab the search, if there is one, from the query parameters and then paste that right into there. And there we go. Now, what's all this other stuff? Well, there are other query parameters. We can see, if I were to put these back up, that there is an ampersand here that is separating all these different query parameters. And you can really put as many as you want up into the URL. And all of these convey information, and they work based on key value pairs. So when we look at what we have with the dog search, we can see that we have a Q equals dogs. Now here, the Q is standing for the key, and the value is dogs. We separate our query parameters with the ampersand. So if we look at this example again, and all these different bits of gibberish that we can see here, if I were to grab the ampersand on all these throughout the entire thing, and we just put these onto their new line, and separate this out a little bit so we can read it better, we can see that we have a bunch of key value pairs. And this is how the sites know where a query parameter starts and ends. So we've got the ampersand and then some other kind of key and a value, and so on and so forth. And if you're asking what all these mean, it's kind of your best guess for a lot of these. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever the programmer of the website wanted that to be. It is arbitrary. So there's no set standard per se that a certain query parameter has to be one thing or another. It can be whatever that site needs. Now, when we look at YouTube, we can see this same thing used as well. And if we were to grab from this video here and look at this query parameter, we can see that we've got youtube.com/watch, and then the question mark denotes the beginning of the query parameters. The V, we can assume, stands for video. And then this part here, we can assume is the identifier for that video. And I'm just piecing this together as I look at it. That just makes sense to me, and I guarantee you that's exactly what it is. So when we have this, that's how I can grab that URL and open up a new tab, paste that in, and we can see, voila, there is the video that we looked at. Now, when you have videos that don't start from the beginning, like maybe you return to a video or you send a video that you've partially gone through to a friend and it doesn't start at the beginning, how does that happen? Well, if we were to take this URL, and let's just do it here so we can see it better, and we put an ampersand here, and then we do our T for the query parameter or the key of time equals, and then let's just say 32s, so 32 seconds. And if we take this and we plop that into our URL and run that, we can see down here that our video is starting at 32 seconds rather than at the very beginning. Now, that's how that works, and the way that I knew that is just from watching, me being a software engineer. I just look at that URL and I can see and deduce that, when we see t equals 32s, I can infer that that means time equals 32 seconds. And you can always play around with that and see that if you were to change this to be 16 seconds or anything else, that video, when you reload that, is going to start at that location instead. And again, that's all from just that information that is conveyed inside of that URL. So what started out as looking a lot like gibberish, now we know a little bit more about how that works.